Now, before I invite Maximo to talk to us for a little bit about his experiences, I should tell you what's going on behind you. So there's a gentleman called Liam Brady who you can't see. He's hidden behind the curtains. And what he's going to do is he's going to record what it is that's being said. And I hope that will help you to kind of crystallize what the meaning is of these various people's experiences so that your questions will be very acute. Right, with that, I would like to hand over to you, Max. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Richard. Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. You mentioned my in my current position. In the title, it's not specifically mentioned, but the reason I'm here is that I'm also in charge of energy. We have here our Director General of Energy. He knows much more than I, but he wrote some notes for me just in case I get confused. So we have some interesting data, and we try not to consume too much time. Just say thank you for everybody, especially thank you to all the people from Climate Click to have chosen Valencia, as I'm also in charge of tourism. You are tourists also, although you don't know it, but you end up being also tourists. So people that come for work can also enjoy. So stay here the weekend and have fun. We will, our economy will improve. Help our economy to improve, and drink and eat as much as you can, please. So going back to Sirius and to energy, we obviously agree and will follow the 20-20-20 strategy of having 20% renewables, at minimum 20% renewables, reduce by 20% the carbon emissions, and improve the energetic efficiency by 20%. This last is my favorite, by the way. I always say that the greenest energy is the one that is not consumed. So I think that's the area where we can do most of it, especially now that with the renewables, you know, we have some a little bit of a situation where in Spain we cannot push them forward so much as we did in the past, although we have done a lot of progress. In this sense, we have a lot of different plans and actions, and all are based always in public-private cooperation. I'm a firm believer that the society, the people are the ones who make the changes. We are just catalyzers. We can help, we can encourage, we can motivate, we can incentivize, but at the end, it's all about people. It's people who do the changes, it's companies who do the changes, and that's our regional policy goes in this sense. Some examples or some figures that I have written here, that Antonio has written here for me, so that I didn't need them to memorize. For instance, in the industrial sector, we have done 711 projects since 2011, targeted to reduce the energy consumption in different ways, through cogeneration, through reduction, substitution of light bulbs using LED, different programs where we incentivize the industries to reduce their consumption and to be sensitive to energy. In this, we have spent 12.7 million euros, but this has generated from the private side 73 million euros. So basically, through our incentives, we mobilize that the companies, especially the industries, put a focus on reducing energy, which helps them also to be, this is a win-win. I liked Bertrand yesterday in his speech that climate change is also a business. By reducing your and changing your corporate energy policy, you end up reducing consumption of energy, and you end up being more competitive, having less costs, so end up being, at the end of the day, creating more jobs and be able to compete globally. And that's our big challenge also, to be globally, to match the reduction in consumption of energy, the clean energy, and simultaneously continue being more and more competitive on a global basis, because we are in the world. This is not a European issue, this is a global issue. In the transport sector, we do two things. One is you've seen the bikes around Valencia that you can rent. As you are a tourist, you can also rent a bike, a nice bike. This works very well. This we've done in 32 cities of Valencia, working in this case with the local governments who are in charge of that. We help them to establish the networks. We establish connectivity amongst cities, that you can use your bike in different areas. And there are more than 5,000 bicycles around. That's for the private transport. We have also an experiment with the University of Valencia, where some electric cars and electric motorbikes that are used to transport, because they have two campuses to shift from one campus to the other. Obviously, we work, and that's in terms of CO2 more relevant. We work with the transportation companies. The cities that have a bus transport use cleaner energies like gas in most of the vehicles, and we help the companies that are in road transport to try to minimize their emissions by reviewing the engines they use, etc., etc. So specific actions for the transport sector to be more efficient. Also, and as we're talking of innovation, I would like to mention that we are very committed to innovation and to push innovative entrepreneurship, and in this sense we have support through business angels, through co-investment with private equity and venture capital funds, through direct loans to any entrepreneur that is interested in research or put forward research and develop his startup or his company based on energy and on climate change, on climate protection. So in this sense, we have different programs. We have also a transfer program, a technology transfer program, where we take the knowledge out from university, because the permeability between university and the companies is not ideal, let's say. It has room for improvement. So one of the things we're doing is making summits where researchers from university who have interesting things to explain get together with companies that we invite to the summit, and they present their developments, their patents, whatever they do, and then the companies take them over or adopt them and start developing the technology that has been developed in the university to bring it to the real commercial product. So that's the other thing. Although the next point, which we are, I think, proud of the results, is this is not public-private, this is cooperating amongst ourselves, is the energy consumption reduction of the buildings of the Valencian government. Believe it or not, we have 1,616 buildings, because the buildings obviously include schools, hospitals, police stations, etc., etc. That's why we have so many. And there we have achieved a reduction of 11% compared to 2011 already, and our goal is to reach 20% by 2016. So the bill, and this is a lot of money. Again, we are talking of money. We're talking of a cost of over 80 million euros. So when we reach 20%, we will have saved our taxpayers more than 16 million euros in expenses. So we're doing two good things. We save money for our taxpayers, and we reduce the emissions and help to the survival of the planet. So that's where we are, I must say, proud of all that we have done. So what are the results of the whole policy we are applying? Well, since 2005, the total regional energetic efficiency or consumption has been reduced by 22%, which is a lot. It's 2,000 or 2,100 kilotons equivalent of oil, which is a lot. So you can imagine that the energy consumption is close to 10% of GDP. It's very close. So when you reduce by 22%, you're saving 2 GDP points, which obviously comes back again to taxpayers and again to efficiency and to competitiveness of the region. As said, renewables have changed in Spain, but even though we have invested in the current term where I'm in charge, 21 million in renewables, which has generated another over 100 million in private investment, also in renewable actions. And because we had this very intense activity in renewables in 2007, now already 45% of all the electrical energy generated in the region is from renewables. So we are already 45% renewable, 55% non-renewable, which is a remarkable achievement. Although, as said, because of the change of policy and the cost, we are not making so much progress currently as we made years ago when it was more aggressively pursued. This has brought as a result in the CO2 emissions since 2008 have been reduced by 22%. And I think I consumed my 10 minutes by the time, Richard, so I end up with the final message. In 5 years, we achieved a reduction of 22% of CO2 emissions, so good results. That obviously is not all the credit from the government, but it's, as you say, it's a combination of a cooperation between public and private where we act as catalyzer and giving incentives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Inevitably, Maria, it is now your turn.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As I was said in the introduction, today I am here more on my condition of a member of the board of the European Institute of Technology. But I'll start just on two notes on my day-to-day role, which is leading Microsoft in Spain. The number one thing that I want to say, and sometimes, most of the time, it doesn't get known, is that the way we operate in the countries is through the ecosystem. So basically, in the case, for example, of Spain, and this goes around Europe, almost 100% of our operation is not done directly through Microsoft, it's through the local ecosystem of companies of the ICT sector. In the case of Spain, it's close to 7,000, and that represents close to 75% of the total job in the industry. So for sure, having in mind public and private partnerships is something that is cornerstone for us. And the second thing that I want to share, regarding my day-to-day job is that today is October 31st, so it's a day of closing of the month. So I hope that the team is doing a fantastic job in closing the month, because I'd rather be here with all of you than, in the office signing contracts. So then, as I said, as the EIT, what is the EIT? And let me share with you how all this started. 2 years ago, someone from the European Commission called me and said that if I was interested in joining the board member of the EIT. And I must say that my answer was, what is the EIT? What is the EIT? So the EIT is the European Institute of Technology that depends on the European Commission. And it's an organism that gets created along the umbrella of Horizon 2020, who, as you might know, most of you, basically the final objective is that Europe regains its space on the industrial sector. Because if we compare Europe vis-a-vis Asia or emerging markets, definitely we're losing momentum, and we need to be back from where we were, especially if we want to compete with this market. So the EIT gets created because of that, and it has 5 areas of priorities. The second instance of that is that in 2008, 3 KICs got created. One is ICT, the second is the energy, and obviously the climate KIC. And I must say that it's been a very interesting journey for me. We are a board member in which we seek together people coming from research, people coming from the academia, owners of SMEs, and some people coming from the industry. And I cannot tell you how interesting it's been, how fascinating it's been, and how challenging it's been as well. I think that for the sake of this audience, let me just share with you what our navigation card is and what is the most challenging conversations and priorities that we have facing for the future. The first good news is that the EIT, even though it's part of the European Commission, it's been able to move relatively independently and relatively fast, which, let me share with you, that is very, very difficult. And forgive me, there are politicians here. I don't consider Massimo 100% a politician, but one of the things that has been positive is that we've been able to do something. And for me, being here with you and touch and feel the entrepreneurs that the KIC, in this case, the Energy KIC has created and helped, and even more importantly, how the KIC is being able to transition them, or is in the journey of transitioning them from entrepreneurs to enterprises, is absolutely fascinating. Because let's remember that Europe doesn't have an issue or a problem of number of entrepreneurs, doesn't have an issue with number of companies. It does have an issue with the size, sustainability, growth. And so for me, it's a fantastic opportunity to see, living in a living experience, some of the things that we discuss in the board meeting every 3 months. What are the 3 priorities that we have as a board meeting, and what are the 3 conversations that we have in mind? And this is a very relevant timing because we are very close to decide, for example, what is going to be the next funding for the different KICs in the EIT, and also because we are creating 2 other KICs. We are creating 2 other KICs that are, one is raw materials, and the other one is around something that is absolutely key in Europe. And obviously looking into faces and looking into how young people are, obviously maybe this is something that not necessarily in your mind, but the last KIC is around aging population. And that is something that is absolutely cornerstone in Europe. So back to the 3 priorities that we have now. Number 1, we don't want to measure activity. We don't want to measure number of things. We want to measure impact. So one of the challenges that we have now and priorities and defining factors that we will have in mind when we decided about what is next is to be able to measure the impact in the industry, the impact on the education front, the impact of number of companies, job creation. But moving from activity-based, throughput into impact is for sure something that is absolutely key in our agenda. Second, we want to make sure that we have the right conversation combining education, research, and people coming from the industrial or corporate world. And the thing is that for many, many years in Europe, we're becoming talking about this triangle, but the fact of the matter is that very few times it has proved to be successful. And in my opinion, in our opinion, just in the EIT and events such as today's, I think it gives us hope that we are in the right path to really do something that is concrete, tangible, and useful in Europe. And the third thing that is absolutely in our mind, and this is precisely the objective of this event, goes to private and public partnerships. The reality of the matter is that the way some of these partnerships, especially on the entrepreneurial world, haven't been that successful up of today. I don't know about you, but for me and for most of the people, I think it's sometimes very, very difficult even to keep count of how many initiatives we have, how dispersed they are, and how, especially in the last 5 to 6 years, I think that there is no university, there is no company, or there is no government that doesn't have its own program supporting entrepreneurship. I don't know about you, but I'm just getting to a point in which just, listening to the word entrepreneurship or innovation is like, okay, what is, I don't know anymore what is the substance into those words. So the third, as I said, the third priority and what is defining our navigation program for the coming years is probably precisely that. We have to do less things, but we have to do things that are more focused on impact and more sustainable. And as I said, and to get to the end, for me coming here, seeing the companies that, and seeing the people that I usually see on paper, I was telling Bertrand, the CEO of the Climate Kick-Off, it's great to meet you because I feel that I know you by name for many months now, for some months now. So it's actually really good for us and really useful for me to be able to see first person what is the result of what we do. Finally, as a closing, congratulations very much for the 18 companies that make it to the final. Best of luck for the 9th finalist, and allow me that my final word is for the Spanish company, for Glosca. I feel super proud to have a Spanish company in this 18 that got it to the final. And again, keep on going. I'm sure that in the next competition, we'll be very close to get it to the end. Thank you very much.
Charlie, follow that.
Well, I'm going to stand up because I think it's a topic too important to sit down for. Hope you don't mind. Look, we're in a situation now where we are doing what we want to see happen. We are already doing what we want to see happen. The only question is, how do we do more of it? So over the past 5 years, $1 trillion has been invested globally in the renewable energy sector. $1 trillion. How can we make that double? How can we quadruple it? How can we make it 10 times that size? So over the past 20 years, I've had the great pleasure to be working with entrepreneurs. In one sense, as a government employee, providing them grants. In another sense, working as a mergers and acquisition specialist, buying those companies or providing them financing. And now in academia, if I'm not sure I still feel very comfortable with that word for myself, but in academia, trying to encourage those entrepreneurs to seek sources of financing. So teaching venture capital, private equity to aspiring entrepreneurs. And as a result of that experience, I have 4 things that I really feel are important that every business must do. Whether you're a young starting business or you're a mature business, you're working in some kind of partnership, it doesn't really matter. If you want to succeed, there are 4 things. The first of those 4 things is that you must have a customer value proposition. You must solve a problem for consumers. If you don't, you will not survive. Okay? Second, you must be bold about growth. You must have a vision to be a world-beating kind of company. Otherwise, you're not going to find many people that are going to want to provide you with money. Okay? And third, you must be clear about what kind of returns you're providing to investors. Now, I'm sure that many of you have thought those before, read those in books, so that what I'm telling you is nothing new. Okay, but this 4th item that I have become convinced that must be a part of a climate innovation or a climate revolution is that businesses that work in this area must solve the customer financing problem, which is it's no longer suitable for us to have product-based businesses in this area. You must be a service-based business. That's how the world is moving in a number of industries. There's no reason that I should have to buy the product that you want to sell me. So if you look at technology, subscription-based business models, Microsoft, I'm sure, is desperate to find now a way that it can transform its previous business model of selling into something on a one-off basis into which it sells to you on a recurring basis through a subscription. It's removing the need for you to find however much Microsoft Windows costs these days, okay, into a monthly, yearly, could even start to be a weekly payment. It's very now pronounced in technology, but it's moving to industrials as well. So with Rolls-Royce, they put an engine on a plane. They no longer charge to sell an engine to Airbus or to Boeing. They sell a certain number of operating hours. And that includes everything that they need to do to keep that thing operational. Now, in the climate space, that's still not very common. Okay? In solar, it has been done very successfully. So many of you will know this company, SunEdison, which has transformed the business model in solar from one that, please buy my solar panel, to please pay me on a recurring basis for the energy, clean energy that I'm producing for you. Okay? And we need a lot more of that if we're going to see progress. Because the world as it is awash with money. Money is not the problem. Okay, now that may sound difficult for some of you who have been out in that process of looking for money. Okay? But money itself is not the problem. If we look at the amount of assets that exist in the world, yeah? Everything real that we can feel, touch, smell, look at, the things that exist in the real economy. These things on whole comprise about $100 trillion worth of a stock of assets. Yeah? And from all of that, we generate all of the GDP, all of the economic activity in this world. The stock of financial assets, stocks, bonds, cash equivalent, all these things that are available to be invested, is 6 times that. There's a stock of $600 trillion out there in the world waiting to find some investment. Okay? And it's very likely, if we believe forecasts by companies like Bain, that over the next 5 years we may move to something like $900 trillion worth of financial assets out in the world looking every day to make a return, far exceeding the stock of real assets that exist. And this is our opportunity. Our opportunity is to find a way to bring these huge pools of capital into this game. Okay? We're at $1 trillion with renewable energy over the last 5 years. We can do a lot better. And the big way we can do a lot better is finding a way that we have suppliers, not customers, financing the purchase of climate innovative products, clean technologies. And if they do that, they will find, I know in my bones from other experiences, that they will find more success. Okay? So, if we look at other industries, if we look at automobiles, washing machines, consumer electronics, could we ever imagine those industries having grown to the level that they have if customers always had to pay for all of that purchase up front? We need to do the same thing that we've done for automobiles, that we've done for consumer electronics, that we've done for washing machines, and we need to do it for clean technology. Okay. Now, a lot of people in the room will probably be a fan or have come across this great Austrian economist, Joseph Schumpeter, yeah? Who I've read a lot about and I find a lot. Because he was not a humble man. He had these 3 goals for his life. He said that his 3 goals were, 1, to become the greatest economist in the world, 2, to become the greatest lover in Vienna, and 3, to become the best polo player in all of the Austrian region. And he expressed great regret late in his life that he never did learn how to ride a horse. Now, Schumpeter and what he had to say and what the idea that we are all motivated by as people who study innovation, he was motivated by this idea that in order for innovation to occur, innovation was matching an entrepreneur, someone with that flair and that ability and that idea, with a source of credit. And a lot of Schumpeter's thinking, we focus just on the entrepreneur and ignore what was the core element of his idea, which is it is only the marriage of the source of financing to the entrepreneur that really unlocks innovation. Okay? $600 trillion in financial assets out there looking for a return. And this industry has the capability to do it. And I would suggest to you that in terms of public-private partnership, this is the area that we must focus. We must find a way in which increasingly governments get back in a way, or government agencies get in a way of arranging and finding and playing some role of intermediary between this big a pool of capital and these great individuals that have these ideas. Because the intermediaries that exist now are doing it, but they're not doing it well enough. They're not doing it fast enough. They're not doing it with the urgency that we need. So I'd just like to leave you as my proposal that there are 4 things that any company must do to succeed. And this issue of solving the problem for the consumer, making it easy for them, financing their purchase for them, is really one thing that we must focus on to unlock greater levels of investment going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Olivier. Oh, you're going to stand up as well. This is a great,
Same
excellent.
way. Thank you very much. Maybe there is some images. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Fine. How does it run? Okay. 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 Well, so there is a short comment about the question of the round table. The question which was at the agenda was the experiences a company as Veolia could have in the field of joining public and private actors in innovation for climate change challenges, the upside and the downsides of the innovation amongst public and private actors, and developing and implementing climate innovation require a massive economic change, and what could be the best for the more important player according to these challenges. So it's probably necessary to have a short word about Veolia. We are, in order to understand where is this experience. We are French, Veolia is a French company listed in Paris Stock Exchange and New York Stock Exchange together. We provide a complete range of environmental services, drinking water supply, wastewater treatment and recycling, waste collection, processing, and material recovery, heating and air conditioning supply, and optimization of industrial processes. In 2013, the global turnover was about 22.3 billion euro, achieved among 40 countries in the world. For example, we have 94 million customers for drinking water and 62 million for wastewater services. We dealt with 38 million metric tons of waste, and we dealt with 163,000 municipal and household installations, providing them energy. Well, the motto inside of the company is to provide a solution to our clients, which are designed to reconcile the development of human activities and environmental protection. It's important for all people in the company need to have such a motto and such a global challenge in order to understand what is the common goal and the common understanding of our activities inside of the company, but also shared with the various kind of clients we could have in several places in the world. Okay. About climate change, which is a part of the background of activities, we had the opportunity to express some expectations to the public bodies at the last meeting of the United Nations about the climate summit in last September. And this expectation could be expressed on expectation or conviction could be expressed on four points. One is it is necessary for a company which is active in the business field to have a stable and generally applied carbon prices to be able to reach a decarbonized economy. It seems also more and more necessary to have some regulations about specific greenhouse gas like methane and other short-lived greenhouse gas and pollutants in order to be able to address this question in complementation what we do with CO2. We have a global view about adaptation policies which have to be founded on savings about energy or natural resources, including water. That means that promoting the circular economy is the main frame in which the adaptation policy in the field in which we are active could be really efficient. And then our conviction is that innovation is the only way to answer globally to all these challenges. Now, some word about innovation. Due to the wide range of challenges to be addressed in the frame of the climate change, it's clear that systemic innovation is the most promising approach. Our systemic innovation means combining technological innovation from miscellaneous abilities to combine new public policies, social or technical organization together, which have to be combined to find this systemic innovation, and not only to address the question of technological innovation. And naturally, that means that to promote this kind of systemic innovation, it's necessary to be able to set up cooperation with all the actors of these domains. A short word about systemic innovation. As far as research and innovation are concerned, Veolia applies now the principle of open innovation, which implies to work in partnership with other people, and the process to choose these partners is decisive in the innovation process. In the past, the main idea for organizing research in a company as Veolia was to choose the best place in the value chain to have a sole mastership, a good mastering of the innovation at the level of the critical points of the value chains. But it's more and more clear that to allow an innovation to be effective, the question is not only to choose the best places to put some innovation, but to consider the global value chain and to be involved in the global design of the value chain in order that every part of this change could be able to bring an efficient innovation at global innovation at the end. In order to work with other people in the frame of the technological innovation, we have developed a process whose name is Veolia Innovation Accelerator, in which we are able to select the partner we could have in the innovation process, often SME, and then to define with them what could be the frame of the cooperation and what kind of the innovation will be organized. That is a way to organize the thing which give a certainty or efficiency to the global innovation process, because we have at the level of this choice to put the right direction, the right purpose of the innovation, and then to understand what could be. This is a good way to finalize the effort we put together with our partners. Another frame of this cooperation innovation is the contract that Veolia could develop with the government, the local government authorities, which represent about 70% of our clients. And these contracts are the natural mainframe for the development of climate change innovation. Well, that is not the sole frame, and it was also necessary, but we think that it's necessary to be able to innovate in other frames that this obvious frame. And for example, our partnership in the frame of the Climate Kick is a good complementation to this usual way to work. On this slide, I have summarized some achievements in innovation which was reached in the frame of our cooperation with city administration. For example, in Pitch, we have developed some biomass heating system for the global city. In Paris, we develop also an heating system recycling the domestic waste, which brings the heating towards the city. In China, in the various wastewater treatment plants we have, we were able to reduce the CO2 emission from at the level of 43%. In the Greater Lyon region, we were able to reduce the energy consumption for the water system, to reduce the GHG emission, develop a system of clean vehicles. Or in Riyadh, we are involved with the recycling of 100% of the treated wastewater for agricultural and industrial use, and so on. Okay, bon, then, so no, I have no more written document, but I have some comments to bring. About the upside and downside of innovation amongst public and private actors. First, about the public sector. The public sector has a high upside in the frame of innovation and systemic innovation is this ability to address a larger range of responsibility and human activities. That means the combination of social organization, of technology, or other points of the innovation could be chosen and organized under their responsibility by the public sector, which can offer to him a large way to put the innovation, and that is probably their main task. On the other way, another and it could be not a downside, but it's a specific responsibility of the public sector, that is to organize the social acceptance, the political acceptance, and the democratic acceptance of the global innovation, which could influence the life of the people. And that is a very difficult task for which they have their own responsibility, and that means that in the same time, in the relationship between private and public sector, the responsibility of the private sector is to understand this the specific responsibility of his public partners, and as far as necessary, to bring up all the necessary information to prepare the decision. The ability specific to the private sector is that they are often more a more used ability to use innovation, because often innovation is a condition of the life of the private sector, and the answer, this necessity that this use of innovation has to be driven according to the necessity of the climate change. If they are not, if you don't have any incentive to put your innovation ability in the direction of climate change, the private sector has no reason to put the climate change through its priority. That means that in the relationship between the private and public sector, it's important that the priority could be set in clear and incentive terms to the private sector in order they make available their ability to innovate in the frame of this objective, and using the incentive which can be given through the public sector. And the public service contracts are often a very good frame to achieve this kind of relation, and to set up this kind of objective and incentive. And the example I could give just a while were developed exactly in this frame.
Olivier?
Yes?
I think maybe if we could
finish.
Yes.
Well, just okay. I will also.
Could we do two things, please? Could we get Liam's PC on the wall, and have we got the microphone? Sorry, my microphone, please. I can speak very loudly. Can you hear me at the back? Okay, good. Okay, so I'd like to open up questions to the floor. So there should be some microphones coming along. There's a question right here in the middle, if we could have the microphone there, please. Is there another person who wants to ask a question? There's another one there. Can we have the microphones to the front, please? Over here. Put your hand up again. Raise your hand. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Joshua Adeoke. I'm from West Midland in the UK. My question is to Maria, maybe probably Charles can also contribute. I saw you give us the purpose of AIT. I want to know, you said that you are supposed to be competing globally. And it also assumed that China has the highest emitter of greenhouse gases. I want to know why Europe, I want to know the agenda of Europe for Africa. And the fact that China, you claim that is highest emitter, and the only one available for development in Africa. I want to know what's Europe's agenda for development and growth in terms of climate change. Because if somebody's an emitter, you give him the opportunity to develop other nations. Why? So I want to know what Europe is doing as far as development in Sub-Sahara is concerned. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody, would you like to address that?
No. Not specific. Yes, okay. But...
Looks like you stumped my colleagues.
Well, I can just tell you that, from my own experience in terms of in solar right now, Africa is a massive market. You talk to people who are developers of solar projects, and they'll tell you that Europe is dead and all the action is in Africa. So, and why is that? It's not because anybody has decided that somehow, suddenly, the development needs of Africa are more important. It's because there's suddenly a clear proposition in which it costs less to use solar energy than it does to run a diesel generator. And it's working, and people are buying it without subsidy, So I think in a lot of these things, the agenda for Africa or an agenda for anywhere inevitably takes a backseat to what is actually how customers are voting with their money in those markets. But from what I see, this is a massively exciting time particularly for energy, clean energy in Africa, because we finally reached the point at which the technology is cheaper than fossil fuels. And going forward, there's no reason why, enormous growth shouldn't happen there. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that there's, the agenda always takes a backseat to exactly what consumers are saying that they want, and clearly solar is taking off there as a result of that.
Although I'm not meant to answer questions, I'm going to just have a bit of a response which ties in with one of the things that Charlie said, which is delivering a service to customers. And I think that if you look at it's a very typical thing. You have to understand what your customers actually want. And I think that early incursions into the developing world and delivering or bringing technologies there, the customer wasn't actually really considered. It was like, here, I've got this technology, you can use it. And that's changing. And there are models that are in the business models that are being developed by startups in the Climate Kick, which are actually developing the business model of a distributed energy provider. And I think that's a very exciting and innovative and interesting thing to be doing. So you buy energy, it's just that it happens to be generated in a very different way, not from a centralized facility, but from a bunch of distributed stuff. There's a lot of interesting issues there about ownership and about maintenance and about developing grids and so on. I think that will be very exciting times, actually. Sorry, yes, there you are.
Thank you very much. So my name is Ernesto López Baeza from the University of Valencia, and then I'm very greatly and gladly surprised with the composition of this panel because, well, I'm working on the application of Earth observation products to the water management optimization. So for the part of the Veolia, I think it's a very good coincidence, and we are presenting our action group from the EIP Water next week in Barcelona. But I have a question, and I also must confess I have a little small business pitch. So, yeah, our university...
It's going to be a small one. It's going to be really sharp, okay?
Yeah.
Really sharp.
I know that it's 3 minutes. I will make it in 1 minute maybe. So then the university is organizing a masterclass at the beginning of January next year on clean energy for entrepreneurship and investment, organized by Ken Moss, who was the initiator of the Institute for Entrepreneurship in MIT. And the professor developing most of the lectures is Professor Joe Lassiter, whom probably Mrs. Garaña know from Harvard Business School. And then the question would be whether the EIT would be interested in contributing with the organization of this activity where the university is also backing up strongly, and then together with our ministry, who is one of the main organizers of this masterclass as well. And I have a question. Related to the energy, then why is it that Spain, by being in the situation like this, is the third country in the world where electricity is more expensive? Thank you.
It's pretty obvious who that question was addressed to.
Okay, the question was that the EIT would be interested in participating in this masters that you're creating. I don't know. What I know is that what are the events or the activities that the EIT, according to our mission, might be interested. And it's kind of interesting because the number one thing that when I joined was surprising is that, in fact, the EIT depends on the Education Commission, not on the Entrepreneurship or Industry Commission. So for sure, something that is on the radar of the EIT is education. And even though I am someone that professionally is in the corporate world, more and more I see out of interacting with the people in the academia that we really have to start transitioning from preaching to acting into coming those things, those both worlds together. So If the masters, I don't know the specifics of the masters, obviously I know the reputation of University of Valencia. It's very important also for us that, in fact, in Spain there are only 2 areas of presence of the EIT, which, by the way, it's an institution with 3,000 million to support entrepreneurships in Europe, and there are only 2 places. One is in Barcelona, the other one is in Valencia. So congratulations for that. I will make sure that, we'll give information to the board, but according to what is the scope and what is the kind of people that is backing up the program, at least you have my commitment that I will do my best into checking with the director and the board members. That, make sure that you get me the information. I will commit to give you an answer in the very short term.
Okay, there's a sort of hot spot over to the left side. You guys over there have gone to sleep. So there are some people at the back. There are 2. Could we get microphones to them? And then there's a gentleman at the front. And what I'm going to do is collect some questions, and then we'll answer them. Please, can I ask you to keep these questions short and to the point? Especially Maria has to catch a train. So we've got at maximum 7 minutes. Keep it short, keep it sharp.
To the Minister, you said that you'd cut CO2 emissions by 22% in the last 5 years. One question, how much of that is just due to the economic crisis? The second question is, you said that 45% of electricity in the region was now renewable, which is a very impressive figure. And there's a question then for you and maybe Charlie and the other colleagues. How do we replicate that? That's one of the things that EIT is meant to be encouraging us as Climate Kick to do. And do we need some of the techniques that Charlie was talking about to help to spread that and scale that up across other European countries?
Okay, we'll store that. Sorry, we'll store that question. No, there's not a question there.
Covered.
The gentleman at the front, is the microphone still there? Oh, it's disappeared. Okay, Maximo, would you start maybe the response to John's question?
Thank you. The first question is pretty easy. The GDP in the same period of time where we saved 22% has dropped in current terms about 5%. So yes, the activity of the economic activity went down by 5%. On the other hand, the proportion of industry in the GDP has grown from 16 to close to 19%. So I can't give you an exact figure, but I would say from the 22, about 19 or 20 will be real save, and the other is a reduction in activity that is energy consuming.
There was a sort of question sort of to you as well, Charlie. Maybe you'd like to address it.
Well, perhaps it's related to the question about, I heard something about the expense and what it's going to cost. And I think it's interesting to consider, why does a company like Walmart, who is obsessed with cost, who practically beats up its suppliers in their little office there in Arkansas, why are they one of the world's largest users of solar energy? Why would they do that? And the reason is because expense is one part of it, but the hidden other part is the volatility of that cost. And for Walmart, who's obsessed with lowest cost, it makes a lot more sense to them to lock into a certain rate. And that sort of customer benefit, when we think about the expense, expensive energy, there's another important this that we have to keep in mind, which is insulating oneself from the shocks. And in the US, there's been, since the Second World War, there's been 11 major recessions. And only one of them, all 10 others, were all preceded by a major run-up in the oil price. So this is, whether you're a government or whether you're a company, there are a lot of reasons besides this kind of headline thing around expense that also come into the decision-making process, and those are probably things that continue to need to be exploited.
Thank you. The gentleman here at the front, and then I think we're going to close off so that we can just close the session and Maria can get her train.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Jose Maria Peiró from the University of Valencia, Institute of Research on Personal Psychology. My question is to Dr. Donovan, because I think that it's very, very important that we emphasize the service in the service model in climate. But then climate has paid attention from the perspective of human capital and social capital to innovation, to entrepreneurship. But I think derive it from your model, it implies that we have to pay very strong attention to the service delivery. Because in the service delivery, quality is not only quality of what you deliver, but how you deliver. And this implies human capital and social capital, trust, and many other aspects. I would like to hear your contribution on that, because I found your approach very, very stimulating. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good question. So I think that of all that list that you said, it all requires that, but it also requires one other thing, which is it requires a brand. Because you've got to say to the customer that I'm going to be around for 10, 15, 20 years in order to continue to service that thing. And that's a big shift. And that'll mean actually some of these small entrepreneurial ventures in the space, if they're really suited to a business model which is a service-based one, they probably need to be absorbed into a larger group. There's just no way that as a new startup company, I can give enough assurance to the customer that I'm going to be around for 20 years to make that happen. And so you see that happening in technology. You know, Microsoft goes out and looks for young companies to do that. And once it's the Microsoft brand, then I can believe that. And so I think in this shift that you're talking about, brand will be one, and that might actually change the setup of how big a company needs to be in order to properly execute on a business model like this.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much for having been present here, and thank you to the four of you for sharing with us your experiences and some of the fantastic things you've been doing. So could we have a hand for our speakers, please?